you don't want to be served by a robot or a computer, right? I mean, like you want to know the people who are making your food. You want to have, many of us will want to have an interaction with food service staff. There will always be, in my opinion, a heavy aspect of this business that's real personal touch. A chicken nugget in one distributor has a very different description than a chicken nugget in the other distributor, in another distributor's data. And it could be the exact same item, but you've got different manufacturer SKUs, you've got distributor SKU, you've got a G10 sometimes, which is supposed to be a standardized number, but it's not. There's so many variations and ways to normalize that data, but there's still a very long tail of distributors that are, behind. And they, to their credit, they know they're behind, they know they need to do the work. And we're seeing, what's interesting, I think, is over the last 3 years, we're seeing more ERP upgrades than we've ever seen. So just about everybody we talk to is either just completing, in the middle of, or contemplating an ERP upgrade. And I think that's great, right? But that's a lot of work, and it's going to take a while. So I think we're about, we're midway through the game.
Welcome to Farm to Fork, the Innovators. I'm David Maloney, president of Datum FS. With over 40 years in the food supply chain, we explore the stories and strategies that are transforming how we produce and serve food. Our guest innovator today is Wink Jones, co-founder and CEO of Meal Ticket, a pioneering suite of food service supply chain software that has been empowering distributors, suppliers, and operators since 2011. In our conversation with Wink, we dive into the current landscape of the food service supply chain, the crucial role food service distributors play within the chain, the messy yet vital importance of data in this sector, and how industry players are leveraging data to enhance their partnership and better serve consumers. So buckle up, hit that subscribe button, and let's harvest progress together. This is Farm to Fork, the Innovators, where the future of the food supply chain starts with this episode. All right, Wink, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Wink Jones, CEO at Meal Ticket, part of the founding team, started back in 2011. Background prior to that was in very, very small VC, kind of early stage. And way before that, I was a professional kayaker and raft guide for about 10 years.
Awesome. Yeah. So that certainly prepared you for the food service supply chain, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I think we were actually, we came at it with a beginner's mind. We really didn't know the supply chain that well. We just saw a giant industry that was still doing business kind of the way they had done for many years. And we saw an opportunity. So I think that probably benefited us, given we didn't know how many ways there are to go wrong or how frustrating the industry can be and how slow moving. So it actually gave us a lot of hope and optimism.
Yeah. So do you still raft?
I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Any other hobbies or?
Play tennis a lot.
Oh, nice.
So yeah.
Nice. Cool. What's your favorite court?
Hard court for sure. Yeah. I mean, I really haven't played on the other surfaces very much. So mostly we play hard court. I'm actually going to Vegas tomorrow and playing in a tournament with my son. So really
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of fun. I grew up a tennis player on hard true.
Oh, okay.
And always been partial to it. That's probably why I spent most of my summers on it.
Yeah.
So, well, cool. All right. So you came totally outside the industry, right? And you said you saw the opportunity, which I agree with you. And there's still a big opportunity, right, in the food service supply chain around data. And we're going to dig into that. But how did you see it?
Well, so my founding partner, who's our CTO now, he had a friend who was a DSR working for a distributor, and they kind of sat down one day and this guy described how all of the industry was basically these sales reps walking in the back door of a restaurant, slapping backs with the owner or the chef, and then taking an order on, pen and paper with carbon copy, right? And this was 2010, 2011. So smartphones weren't new, but most of the reps at that time still carried, clamshell phones. Most weren't carrying smartphones. And I didn't, at the time, again, being totally beginner to it, I didn't realize how large the industry was. We were talking about a $200 billion industry of distributors selling to restaurants. And we just saw that if there's an industry that big still using 40-year-old technology, then, surely we could introduce some basic SaaS tools and kind of drag them into the 21st century.
Yeah, cool. All right. So tell us, maybe we'll dig in a little bit deeper on meal ticket, but maybe in a couple sentences, like what does meal ticket do?
So we have now an end-to-end solution of SaaS tools that we sell into the supply chain, and that's distributors, manufacturers, and operators. We have a back of office solution for operators called MarketMan. We have a SaaS data management and CRM platform for distributors, as well as a rebate management system called TrackBacks. And then we have a data platform for manufacturers to access distributed data through this platform with the cooperation and coordination of the distributors that we work with.
Yeah. And is it fair to say that when you got into this, all that was generally manual?
A lot of it, definitely. Yeah. And in fact, still is. I mean, there are a lot of distributors that still manage their P&L on spreadsheets that manage thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of rebates on even back of the envelope, yellow pad. And certainly in 2011, when we started, there were really only a couple of the larger distributors that could afford to actually build their own systems. And outside of that, there just wasn't a good SaaS system or SaaS ecosystem at all for them to choose from for any of these basic tools.
Yeah. And just for the sake of the audience, can you define SaaS for us, please?
Yeah, sorry. Software as a service. So, really pioneered by Salesforce back in the kind of mid 2000s, where instead of having to install the software locally on a machine that lives in my office, I go to a website and I access the software, and then I pay a monthly recurring fee for that. So lots and lots of SaaS software now. SaaS as a vertically specific strategy has been very successful over the last 15 years for many companies. So think like QuickBooks is a great example of one, Bill.com, all of these companies that are, small business to business offerings that can allow businesses to basically, without having to spend a lot to build their own software, have access to, these tools that are more broadly applicable.
Cool. All right. And so can we educate the audience on generally how the food service supply chain works? So if you have a supplier who has raw, or a manufacturer, I'll use those interchangeably. All right. And correct me if I shouldn't. Who selects raw ingredients, what the distributor does, and what the operators do, if you could.
Sure. Yeah. So as a distributor-centric company, I always start with the distributor when we talk about the business. Distributors buy the raw product from the manufacturers and sell to the operators, to the restaurants. So distributors, and this is where it gets tricky, is that distributors buy tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of product from the manufacturers. Oftentimes, when they turn and sell it, their gross margins are pretty slim and their net margins are even slimmer. So a big component of what distributors do is they negotiate rebates or trade dollars that come back downstream from the manufacturer to the distributor. And often those trade dollars end up making up most of what the net profitability is for distributors. And so that's kind of one quirky aspect of this industry that's very unique to this industry, in that, manufacturers are used to paying for the ability to do business with distributors in addition to selling them products at some margin as well. The insight that we had early on is that you can be a distributor, again, in 2011, and this still exists today. You can be a distributor manufacturer and not know where your product is ultimately ending up or how it's ending up being served to consumers. So my favorite example is talking about Tyson chicken in a market like Dallas, right? So Tyson can sell a truck full of food in cases, and let's say they're chicken wings, to a distributor in Dallas, and they don't know if those chicken wings are being sold to chicken wing restaurants and they're being breaded and then fried up, or if they're being served with buffalo chicken sauce or barbecue, or they're ending up in a different type of restaurants. And then are they being sold alongside celery and ranch and carrots and that kind of thing? If you're a marketer at Tyson, you know so little about where your product ends up, only that you're going to get another order at the end of the month. And you hope that order is bigger and continues. But without any sort of visibility past the distributor layer, there's really no way for them to see the market and see how the end consumer is actually consuming that product. And so that was one of our early insights into this industry, is that there's so little visibility between the layers here that opacity really, it's costly to everybody in the chain.
So if I'm Tyson, the supply chain would kind of work like this. I'm sourcing those chickens. Well, they're vertically integrated, but I'm sourcing those chickens. I am processing those chickens. I have a product, chicken wings, that I'm now selling into the distributors. And the distributors then will sell it into the operators. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And one of the major reasons that we have these distributors is almost all individual, if not all individual operator locations can't take enough chicken wings off a truck directly from Tyson.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So distributors play a vital part, and I'd offer are probably the most important steward of the data in that supply chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll add to that, the unfortunate situation is that the distribution layer is probably the least profitable layer within the supply chain.
That's a great point, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, very valuable, but have so little ability to take more profit and stay healthy.
Yeah, that's a great point. And somebody may ask, they may say, well, wait a minute. If I am a big chicken wing chain, yes, I may contract directly with Tyson, but it's important to know, folks, hey, they're still using that distribution network. It may look a little different. It may be a custom distribution network, or it may not, but it's a similar situation.
Someone's still got to drive the trucks and freeze the chicken or store it before it gets delivered.
Right. Yeah. What do you see throughout, and we'll dive into meal ticket in a second, but what in your opinion, like, you're touching every node in that supply chain, and it all seems to be data centric. What do you think are the biggest challenges in the supply chain?
I mean, I think the supply chain is very antiquated in its technology stack. And we saw that when we started. We still see that the big guys can build their own and get online and get into the cloud, but there's still a number of distributors that are either resistant to that, or they're running old systems that they're dependent on, that they can't or aren't willing to upgrade. Mm-hmm. Looking in the future, I'm sure we'll get to this, but it's going to be critical if you're going to manage your data and you're going to be in a market to have the ability to leverage the power of software and data. And if you're running a AS400 system from a 1985 install, it's just going to be really tough to do that.
1985.
True. There's a lot.
Right.
A lot of it.
Yeah. Doesn't seem that long ago for me, but yeah. Okay. So I hear you that the systems generally are antiquated. Is it fair to say that the operations are generally people driven? Even the firefighting is kind of people chasing fire, trying to put out fires.
That's absolutely true. And I think that the challenge with not being able to adopt recent technology is that you make it up with full-time employees, and it costs more money, and you've got more heads than you'd probably need in order to firefight, chase problems, and actually run the business. And so you end up with things like, even it's mid-sized distributors, dozens of accountants and payment processors, and it just from an outsider's perspective, it looks wildly out of date, right? But it's a function of not having the ability to upgrade to recent technology.
So somebody may counter and say, well, look, the restaurant business, the food service business, is a relationship business, and it's very important. And I can speak for major chains, right? What we ran into when we developed an RFP platform was that we thought it was a no-brainer, right? You put your product out for bid, you find additional suppliers, you can help drive costs down, but you also can find backup suppliers and make your supply chain more agile. And what we learned very quickly was that relationships were unbelievably important.
Yep.
Right? Because in the end, a big chicken wing restaurant chain really doesn't want to change their chicken wing supplier because it's tremendously disruptive. So how do you counter that, right? The relationship part of it.
I think the fun part about this industry is that aspect, right? It will always be a very personal industry. Like, you go in and you sit down for a meal, you don't want to be served by a robot or a computer, right? I mean, like you want to know the people who are making your food. You want to have, many of us will want to have an interaction with food service staff. There will always be, in my opinion, a heavy aspect of this business that's real personal touch. And I think when we think about how technology interacts with that, it's about leveraging people's time. If you think about, the way that you can spend productive time as a person in a business, spending time manually entering orders from a handwritten note is not, in my mind, a productive way to spend your time and to interact with and engage with people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Visiting a restaurant as a sales rep and talking about their menu and looking at their menu items and their ingredients and figuring out what's next and like actually building a relationship with those restaurants, that's the fun and productive part of that business. Being a manufacturer that can go along, on ride-alongs and like actually sit down and see where their end product, what the end consumer is actually doing with the product, like that to me is where, the personal touch gets really interesting. And so we've had a mantra, and again, like we learned this early on, that you're not going to replace the sales rep with a piece of software, right? That relationship is very, very important. And I think there are those in the industry that are trying to do that from a distributor layer side, and it has been largely unsuccessful. And we continue to see those constituents within the supply chain that, lean into those relationships. They tend to do better. They have more pricing power. They have more long-lasting relationships. They build loyalty, and it's just, I think it's always going to be a key part of this vertical.
Yeah, and to your point, how kind of antiquated the system is. We have a change at our restaurant, and I had to help do the bakery order today. Right? You know how we did it? Text. I'm holding up my phone, show the text, right? I mean, and I'm a data software guy, for Pete's sakes, right? And I don't even really operate the restaurant. I got time to do stuff, right? So, it is. Okay, cool. So part of the problem, if I hear you, is the data. What's the matter with the data in the supply chain?
Well, I think for starters, traditionally, the data was housed in an on-premises installation of an ERP, right? So it lives in a closet, running on a server that someone, maybe it's a guy and maybe it's an outsourced guy that knows how to manage it and how to access it, right? And it comes and goes. And traditionally, it was very, very difficult to get that data off-prem. Firstly, because they didn't have any, cloud-based solutions. Secondly, distributors are historically very protective of that data because, and for good reason, that data is their customer base, right? Mm-hmm. And their pricing, right? So like the last thing a distributor wants is for their pricing to their customers to get out there, because if you're selling commodity, then one of the largest distributors is going to come in and underprice you and take that business. That's the fear, which is totally founded. I think and we've seen a more willingness lately in the last 5 years for that to change, or at least to trust that cloud data hosting is just as safe, in fact, probably safer than on-prem hosting.
Yeah, I agree.
I think most of the big hacks that have happened over the last few years have been on-prem systems that are, again, because they're so old, they're easier to hack. The newer systems that are hosted away, but behind firewalls and within assigned data centers, like it's just so much easier to protect. So I think that's a big one. The second piece around data that's probably now that reluctance has waned, the more challenging piece is normalizing data so that it's actually useful. So everybody has, when we call this our chicken nugget challenge, which is a chicken nugget in one distributor has a very different description than a chicken nugget in another distributor's data. And it could be the exact same item, but you've got different manufacturer SKUs, you've got distributor SKU, you've got a G10 sometimes, which is supposed to be a like standardized number, but it's not. Somebody has entered a description, called it a chicken nugget, or maybe it's a CHKN, NUGT. Like there's so many variations and ways to mismanage or misnormalize that data, that it makes the challenge of actually, disaggregating that and having that data be useful from a broader perspective. It makes it very challenging. So that I think alone deters a lot of people from wading into the business because the data challenge is so large. And, I know there's like some really smart companies out there lately that have been doing a lot of work here to do that, but it can't be understated how messy that data is. I think
Yeah.
that's the word of the decade is that it's just really messy.
Yeah. 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 And folks may know this. I live that too. So how can this be overcome? Right. So we talk about the data, we talk about the antiquated systems. Like, how can this be overcome, and how does meal ticket play a part?
Yes, we have been addressing this challenge for going on 10 years now since we first really started getting distributor data
Mm-hmm.
and looking at how to normalize that data. I think there are a few ways. 10 years ago, AI as it exists today did not exist, but machine learning did. And so we built some systems based on machine learning, based on tagging, based on some other applications of what you might call machine learning and algorithmic approaches at that time to dedupe the data and make it actually usable. The fact of the matter is, the more data you have, the better chances you have of actually getting to something that is the truth. And again, the truth in our vernacular is a chicken nugget is a chicken nugget, right? So getting to truly what a chicken nugget is requires a ton of inputs to kind of hone in on what the most likely description is of that item. Lately, AI is lending a huge hand to this for a lot of obvious reasons, but in my mind, this application of AI is a perfect use case because you can take all sorts of data. Let me say it this way: like if I look at a chicken nugget description and item code from 10 different distributors, I, as a human, can discern that that's probably a chicken nugget. A traditional computer program can't, right? If it doesn't match perfectly, it doesn't match. But that's a perfect application for AI that can look at these things and approximate what the truth is, and then get to something that's most likely the truth. And so the leveraging AI is really very new to this business, and we're seeing some really smart people do that. And I think that's going to help solve that problem pretty quickly. Our historical approach to it with some of our ML and other approaches has worked, but this just takes that to the next level. And I think we're going to see a lot of other companies doing that. And I'll say, by the way, that this issue isn't isolated to small distributors or single independent distributors or converters. Like the big distributors have maybe a worse problem because so much of what they did was acquire companies and put all the ERPs together. So now within a single company, you have this problem, which to me is remarkable. These are large companies that generate millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and they face the same challenge. So I think everybody's looking at this problem right now and starting to see the path forward through AI, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and I think supply chain, what we learned during COVID is supply chain has become incredibly more important, let's just say. Or it's not that it became more important, that the importance has been recognized, all right? And those that are able to put their data to work over the next decade or two are probably the companies that are going to win.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Absolutely agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and by proxy, those are the companies that are innovating and that are, bringing themselves into the 21st century and using the technology that's available to them.
Yeah. So speaking of technology, meal ticket, walk us through kind of what you offer in the different nodes, if you will.
Sure. So we're very distributor centric. We started with distributors as kind of how we grew up. We have, our suites starts with the distributor in mind, helping them go to market, helping them manage their financials, helping them run healthy businesses. They give us a data feed of every transaction that they processed yesterday, right? So invoice, SKUs, number of items sold, pricing, costing, sales rep, products, all that stuff, right? It all comes in daily. We run that through our algorithms, dedupe it, map it, use AI on it, make it digestible, and then we give it back to them. And what they do with it is they do reporting, right? Basic reporting and analytics, so they can find how did we do yesterday, how did we do last week compared to the week prior, where are our opportunities to penetrate accounts and sell more. But then we also have a set of tools that they can use as we call it a CRM platform, but it's really a marketing and sales platform that they can use to generate offers, specials, to push directly to like their own accounts where there might be opportunities. So the chicken wing example, like we're selling chicken wings to this account, but that account's not buying celery, ranch, and carrots from us. That's probably an opportunity to sell them more stuff. Push that to the sales reps. The sales reps use that to go market. So in addition to that, we also have a solution called TrackMax that is for managing those rebates that we talked about earlier, to where a distributor that has a book of rebates that they've negotiated with their manufacturer partners, with their suppliers, they track every purchase and they track every sale on every item that's in their rebate programs. And then this helps them to, in turn, turn around and bill their suppliers for how much rebates they owe them as part of that trade program. And, remarkably, tracking that stuff on pen and paper and Excel, you tend to leave money on the table. And so TrackMax really helps them to like capture funds that they have agreed contractually to be captured. And again, because that's so heavy a component of their profitability, it's a really key piece to keeping distributors financially healthy. So that's kind of the distributor land. We also have a trade show application that is very specific to the way distributors do their trade shows, and that kind of feeds them. It's based on data and that kind of thing. We developed, it's been about 8-9 years ago now, we developed a data sharing platform for those distributors as well to share their data with manufacturers. So back to the Tyson example, Tyson can buy access to data from a distributor where we'll engage directly with Tyson, or the distributor does the sale. Either way, Tyson can log in, and then Tyson can go, I want to look in the Dallas market and I want to see everybody that's buying ranch and carrot sticks and celery and not buying chicken wings, because that's a very likely buyer, right? Mm-hmm. And that then gives Tyson a list of accounts to help them go to market with the distributor's sales reps. Tyson can also put together specials that would then flow downstream to the operator through the distributor. So it's really tightening that partnership with the distributor, and it's also giving the distributor more access to trade funds and marketing funds that Tyson has allocated for that exact type of purpose. So it's truly a data sharing platform from that perspective. Lastly, we acquired a company called MarketMan about 2 years ago. That does restaurant back office management. So it's technically in the segment of inventory management, which basically allows a restaurant to connect to the distributor, place an order, pull in their order guides, and then map all that information to their menu. And then from the POS, we integrate with the point of sale system as well, pull in their sales, so that we can give the restaurant a true picture of what their gross margin is on every single menu item that they sell. So we have the recipe book. We can look at what their cost is, what they're selling it for, and then show them, are you making money on that hamburger you just sold? Or has your cost gone up and you didn't realize it? Or do you need to start looking at raising your prices because inflation's hitting, or whatever it might be? So really the idea is that we have this, end-to-end platform that connects based on the data that we receive primarily from the distributor, and that enables manufacturers to go to market better, and then the operators to stay healthy and run profitable businesses.
Yeah, cool. And I can tell you at our restaurant, we look at that profitability on our items. We're starting to, right, in much greater detail, and it's really leading us towards. It's changing how we think about our offerings and how we're marketing and what we're doing. It's a game changer, right? It's a game changer for our restaurant operationally.
It's surprising when you actually look at the data, and as a restaurant owner, you can see where you thought you were making money and you weren't, or vice versa, right? And I think that's the power of data when you do it right, is delivering that in a way that's actionable and a way that is insightful.
Yeah. I mean, we always thought that the most profitable item we had was drip coffee, until we started running our recipes through our espresso machine. Our espresso machine recipes, and tremendously better. Yeah. So anyways, okay. So in that supply chain, what I've seen over, let's just say pre 5, 6 years ago, is kind of the operators had a lot of leverage in that supply chain, but that's kind of shifted. Would you say over the last 4 years, 4 or 5 years or so?
Yes, to some extent. I think COVID turned everything on its head a bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think that the waves of inflationary impacts from COVID are still hitting, right? And we're still trying to figure out what kind of normal is in terms of expected pricing. So, yeah, I mean, I do think that the leverage has shifted a bit to distributors as well, because part of what we learned through COVID is how critical distributors are in the supply chain and how potentially fragile that is if we, were to lose that layer of the ecosystem.
Okay, great. So if on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say is the state of the food service supply chain? Like, like you say, it's antiquated. Like, where are we in the game on a scale of 1 being the most antiquated and 10 being the least?
I mean, I want to be fair to some of my current customers,
Sure.
uh, but I think it's around a 5. I think
Yeah.
that there are many uh, that have upgraded themselves, but there's still a very long tail of distributors that are behind and still, and they to their credit, they know they're behind. They know they need to do the work. And we're seeing, what's interesting, I think, is over the last 3 years, we're seeing more ERP upgrades than we've ever seen. So just about everybody we talk to is either just completing, in the middle of, or contemplating an ERP upgrade. And I think that's great, right? But that's a lot of work, and it's going to take a while. So I think we're about, we're midway through the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. So how does Market Man help it get to a 10?
I mean, I think one thing that we've done is been able to not allow ERP status to hold us back. Or to hold the distributor back. As a solution, we kind of sit on top of whatever they have already installed. So we take data out, we can put data in. We've gotten very good at helping with the distributor to extract data and then to put data back in where it's relevant. And even in some of the older systems, it's a little more work to do. But really, I think that's the challenge of the industry, and also the challenge of our age for most verticals, where you've got an antiquated system set where they're not ready to upgrade necessarily, and they'll probably always be behind the state of the art. So the real key is like how well and how thoroughly and how quickly can you integrate to extract and then put data back in order to deliver values to the end users. And I think there's some very smart folks in our business now that are doing that. I think we've spent a lot of time doing it. We have to keep getting better at it. It is one thing that will always be a limiter if you're not good at it as a technology company in this space.
Yeah. Okay. And is there somebody may say, well, wait, Tyson doesn't understand where their chicken wings are going, right? It's not just limited to Tyson. It's, limited to all those suppliers just about. And unless they're doing some sort of rebate or GPO, group purchasing organization, right, work, it's kind of hard to get to that end user. Is there a way for the suppliers to work better with the distributors and the operators to connect their brands with the consumers?
It's an interesting one. So I've seen it. We saw it a long time ago when we first started here, where there was a French fry company that had a really nice food service brand, and they really wanted to launch that same brand into consumer. And they were putting incentives to the restaurant to actually have branding on the receipt to try to force or incent the consumer to go to the freezer aisle and then go find that same brand.
Yeah.
The problem with that, and I think that still exists, is that it just creates a conflict, right? If you're a restaurant, you don't want to like show them that you're buying the same frozen fries they can get at the grocery store, right? And nor do you want them to get it. You want them to come and buy your fries. So I think there are ways, but it's challenging, right? Because there's always going to be that push and pull of like at home versus eating out. And I'm not sure. I think that there's so much effort that goes into those two things as a different channel for these large manufacturers that, and we talk about this a lot. It's a very different business. So selling to a grocery, which ultimately is going to be consumer, versus selling to a restaurant, which is going to a consumer, but on a table, they're so wildly different. They might as well be different verticals, right? It might as well be, selling paper versus chicken or whatever. But like, It's just, there's so much that's different about their go-to-market motions that it's hard to even think about how you would ultimately connect those to align the incentives. And I think that's the hard part.
Interesting. All right. So if we're at a 5, how long does it take to get it to a 10? Wait.
I think the ball's going to, I think the goalposts are going to keep moving. Right. So I think we might get to a 7, but then the goalposts are going to shift. I think about the impact of robotics and AI to the delivery mechanism of distributors, right? That's going to be dramatic, and it's a ways off, right? But one of the distribution challenges right now is driver shortages, because it's a really tough job. I mean, you're up at 3 a.m, you're backing into tiny little alleyways, you're unloading, thousands of crates of food, and that job being replaced by robotics is going to be an enormous benefit to humans in general, and I think to the supply chain. So, imagine the capital investment for a distributor to get into that, right? That's going to take a while. So I think we're in the early innings in terms of like, if we're on a 10, that's like software adoption, right? But technology adoption, we're probably at a 2 or a 3, because again, the rate of current progress, I just think there's going to be so much impact to the supply chain from new technologies that are coming out.
Yeah, that's a great point. And those field goals are going to get farther and farther. We may be moving forward, but those posts are going to get farther and farther away. I doubt we're going to be able to adopt as fast as technology is innovating at this point. That's a great point.
I think that's right. And I think it's also the nature of this business that is again, the distributor layer is such a thin margin business. It just doesn't leave a lot left over for big capital investments.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, Wink, this was a great conversation. I'd like to thank you for being on the show.
David, thanks so much for having me. It's been really great talking with you.
Yeah. And that brings us to the end of another insightful journey through the fields of innovation on Farm to Fork, the Innovators. It's an honor to have you listen. If you found today's episode as fascinating as we did, don't forget to share it with a friend, write a review, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode. Farm to Fork is not just a podcast, it's a community of forward thinkers and change makers. Your thoughts and ideas matter to us. Reach out on social media or through our website, datumfs.com, and be a part of the ongoing conversation. As we wrap up today, remember, the future of the food supply chain is in our hands. Stay curious, stay innovative, and let's continue growing together. Until next time, this is David Maloney, signing off from Farm to Fork, the Innovators. Thank you for being a part of this community. See you in the next episode.